Hi everyone, today I'm taking a look at the Guild of Merchant Explorers, which is a 1 to 4 player board game designed by Matthew Dunstan and Brett J. Gilberts. This one takes around 45 minutes to play on average. Before I get into the review, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, Kienda.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer in the UK, where you can pick up games such as this one. And if you use my discount code in the show notes, you can get 5% off your first order. Okay, so the game is going to look like this when it's set up, where each player is going to have the identical same player board, and there are 4 of these to choose from, so you've got a bit of variation there. You're also going to have this communal board here that looks like this, which is going to show the cards that have been and have yet to be flipped, because this game plays very much like a flip and write style game. However, you are not writing, you are simply placing these exploration cubes. So that's going to be showing what you have or what you haven't explored on the map. There's also going to be some of these public objective cards that come out depending on the map you're playing on. So you can see here with this Avenia map, we've got these 3 objectives here, where the first of which is to place 2 trading posts on cities valued 3 or greater. You've got discover 5 villages, or you've got explore 3 ruin spaces along the border of the map. And if you are the first player to achieve that goal, you're going to get the 10 points. But if you do it later on, you're still going to get compensated by getting 5 points. And there are 2 decks of cards here. These are the special cards that you're going to unlock as the game goes on, which are really powerful, and we'll touch on that a bit later. And you've also got these treasure cards, which again you can discover as you explore your map. And there are additional resources as well, such as these trading post tokens, which again will be placed on your board should you tie these trading posts together. You've got these treasure chests here, which shows already explored chests or ruined spaces. You've got all your points tokens, and you also have these wooden tower pieces as well if you manage to explore these towers. Okay, so the flow of the game couldn't be more simple. All you're going to do on your turn, you're going to reveal the next card from this stack here, and you're going to place it on the main board here. This is going to show what all players are going to explore this round. So you can see here, I've revealed this grassland here, so therefore I can explore 2 grassland hexes. And you're always going to start, at least at the beginning of the game, from this main space here. And I might want to say, well, I can only explore grassland, so I can say go here and here, like so. Now, if I ever cover up one of these coins, then I'm going to get one of those coins, which is essentially going to be a point at the end of the game. And then it's going to continue until all players have done that, and then you're going to go to the next card and reveal it, like so. So this is going to be the Sandland. And then you're going to place 2 Sandland tokens. But now you've placed some cubes on the board, not only can you explore from your main city or the starting point, you can also span off from where you've already explored. So maybe I want to start venturing down here and spreading further and further. So you can see here all the different cards that come out. You've got a 1 mountain exploration hex. You've got the 2 we've already explored. You've got a 2 wild one. So when you reveal that, you can actually choose which ones to explore. So it gives you a bit more flexibility there. So let's just say I wanted to go here, and then maybe I wanted to go here as well. And we'll touch on why I might want to do that a bit later. And you've also got this one here where you've got the 3 water spaces, but in a straight line. So that lets you cross the ocean to, again, start venturing onto these new islands. Now you can also see on the main board here, you've got these other spaces for a 1, 2, 3, and a 1, 2, or 3 card. Now, basically each round there is going to be one of these cards added to the deck. So in the first round, you've only got the 1 in the deck. And when you reveal that card, you are actually going to draft or pick 2 of these cards from the top of the deck and then select one of them to add to your player board. So let's just say I revealed these 2, and these cards are absolutely fantastic. They're much more powerful than the basic ones you get here and let you explore a lot faster, further, and quicker. So you can see here, this investigate card says it lets me explore a continuous path of 5 desert and or sea spaces. Or this one here says I can explore up to 1 sea and 4 desert spaces in any order. So again, that lets you cover a lot more ground than the basic ones. And when you've selected the one that you want, so let's just say I wanted to select this one, you're going to add it to the side of your board here, like so, because later in the game, when it gets to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round, essentially, when you draw that card again, you're going to get to use this ability again. So you can use this more than once to get maximum dividends from it. So let's talk about what we're actually trying to achieve here. So the first way you can get points is to simply land on the coins, which I mentioned already. The second of which is to establish new villages. Now, when you do that, you are going to have a look whenever you complete a full section of terrain. So you see here, I've got all these three sand terrain types complete. I'm then going to take one of my little village tokens and place it on one of those empty spots like so. So I could replace a cube with the house like this. Now, this is important because not only does it get you victory points depending on the round you're in. In Era 1, you're going to get 1 victory point for that. In Era 4, you're going to get 4 victory points for that. But also, what's important is the actual establishment of this village, because when it comes to the end of the round, after all of these cards have been depleted, every one of these exploration cubes is going to get wiped off the board. However, these villages are going to remain on the board and going to act as new spawning points in the future round. So it lets you kind of reach further and further and cover more ground without having to start back from bare bones. So let's take a look at some of the other features here. So you can see you've got these trade houses here. Now, whenever you tie these together, so let's just say I managed to have a continuous group of cubes, I'm connecting these two trade houses together, you are actually going to multiply them with each other. So it'll be 4 times 3 for 12 points. And you'd also cover them up with one of these tokens. So you can actually choose which one to do, but it does mean that you'll not be able to score that particular trade house again. So, you cannot keep exploiting it again and again. Additionally, if you choose to explore these ruins, by placing a cube on it, you're going to get to draw a card from this ruin deck here, which can give you a bunch of different things, such as these jars, which let you score points based on a sliding scale, depending on how many of those you've collected. Or some of them might give you a kind of end game victory points as well, based on other things. If I can find one here, like this, for example, for each tower I explore, I'm going to get a coin at the end of the game. And that ties into these towers, which are usually on the kind of right on the border of the map in the hard to reach places. So whenever you put an exploration coin there, a cube there, obviously I would have had to connect it, you are going to get a number of points based on this here. So the first one you explore, you're going to get 6 points. The second one's going to be 8, then 10, and then 14. But achieving all of them is very difficult because they are all really spread out. And that is essentially the way the game plays and how you get points. Of course, at the end of the round, you're going to reshuffle all these cards in together and add the next round's card, meaning that when that one's drawn, you're going to add a new special card to your deck, meaning that you can start, again, really ramping up your ability to spread across the map. And at the end of the game, after these 4 rounds are complete, bearing in mind that the last round, you're going to have this kind of wild card where you can choose which special ability to activate. Again, after all those 4 rounds are completed, you're going to add up all your points, and the person with the most victory points is going to be the winner. Okay, so let's share some thoughts on the Guild of Merchant Explorers. And I suppose the first thing I want to touch on is the buffet of options on how you can get points. And I think this is a really good touch because everything seems inviting. I want this big cluster of coins here, just sat there ready for the taking. And, if I set up a trade house, I can maybe exploit that again and again and again because my exploration cubes are going to come off the map, meaning again that I can keep taking those points. And I want to reach these far points on the map because these towers are worth a big chunk of change here and can really put you in a good position to win the game. We want to connect the cities together so you can get these big multipliers. Getting the bigger cities connected to the other bigger cities is more difficult and it's going to require a longer trade route. However, that might be worth it as well. Maybe you want to explore all the ruins and start maybe going for this kind of set collection method as well. So again, tons of different ways you can get points there. And additionally, there's even those public objectives. So you've got that tension there to try and be the first to achieve that. However, I do like the way that is almost like a conflicting mechanism because you are so drawn into getting all these points. You also need to bear in mind that at the end of the round, you will be resetting your player board. Meaning it's ultra important for you to establish these new villages because earlier in the game they're not worth many points at all, but it is going to be vitally important. Otherwise, you're going to start from scratch and not really venture too much further. Whereas if I'm starting from here, it's not going to take much effort at all for me to start reaching these really far reaches on the map to start you getting those really juicy hexes and really kind of ramping up your point scoring. So it kind of reminds me of something like Blue Lagoon or something like Tikal, for example, where creating new spawn points is really important, but it might kind of act as a short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. But despite all that cool stuff going on, the coolest thing about this game by far are these special cards. These are absolutely fantastic and add so much life into the game and make your turns feel so much more satisfying than the basic cards that come up. Let's just take a look at some of the other ones here that we haven't had a look at. Like, for example, you've got these ones here that lets you explore 3 mountain spaces, which is normally a difficult thing to explore because the basic card only lets you explore 1. But it also lets you double the value of coins you have or you earn from those spaces. You've got this one here that lets you explore a mountain, but also explore all the hexes around that mountain. Or this one here that says explore up to 4 sea spaces, then explore any number of cities adjacent to those sea spaces. So it lets you really explore these trade posts on the kind of on the coastline, and these are all different strategies you can go for, even these wild ones, or there's even ones that let you kind of go as far as you want in a straight line. So there's a bunch of different things you can do here, and they all feel great, and when they come up you're like, yes, this is what I really needed, and this is really going to kickstart my turn. There's also a decent degree of planning and strategy in this game because you need to leave yourself with contingencies and options. And that's really cool because this is like very easy to look at a glance to see what has come out and what has yet to come out. You know, with a lot of roll and writes or flip and write style games, they usually make an effort to say how many cards of this type are in the deck, but it requires too much effort and too much work to really work that out and try to plan things accordingly. Well, this one, there's only like one of each type of card. So you can see like I've got the 2 wild card that yet to come out. I need to leave this option ready for me for when it does come out. And it also means that in the kind of future rounds when things are wiped off, you need to leave yourself with options because say you know that the sand card is yet to come out, however you've not left yourself any options for you to explore onto sand, then you're going to pretty much waste your turn. So again, that is something you need to think about to make sure you're not wasting anything, because again, that smallest mistake can end up costing you because there are so many different ways you can get points. But kind of in contrast to that as well, it does feel like sometimes it can work against you in terms of just the luck of the cards coming out, because, or especially when it relates to these special cards. Like, for example, say I had a card that lets me explore as many sand areas as I wanted to, but I'm not next to any sand areas by the time that card is drawn. That means I've pretty much wasted my special cards. I'm not going to get anything for it, whereas my opponents are going to absolutely smash a bunch of hexes, and I'm going to instantly fall behind, and that ground is difficult to make back up. But yeah, there is something you can do about it, or there's often a way around that, but it can still feel frustrating if you are wasting turns. Now, despite the good decisions to be had here, I do feel like the game goes on a little bit too long. You know, you are looking at around 45 minutes to play this, and I feel like if I'm to break it down into round structure, that is 1 round too long. I'm generally satisfied by the end of the 3rd round, and I feel like the 4th round is just a little bit too much for me, and I'm kind of ready for it to end by then. But that being said, the majority of the gameplay is simultaneous, so you're not waiting for other players to take their turn. You can really get your head down in your board and not worrying about what other people are doing or waiting for them to take their turn. So that is definitely a nice touch. I do feel there's a decent degree of replayability here because it's one of those games where you can't achieve everything per game and there's always more for you to explore, and you do end up making mistakes. And I think a big part of this game, or the lure to come back to this game, is to try and kind of fix those mistakes and improve on your previous score, because inevitably you are not going to be as efficient as you want to be. But on top of that, you do actually get 4 maps with the game. Yes, they all do generally work in the same way. Like this one here is just a kind of a more spread out island, a bit more difficult to spread around and travel or traverse the sea. You've got the volcano one here where you have these kind of dead spaces which you can't travel through. Just again, make things a little bit more difficult for you. And you've also got this one here with these jagged rocks, which actually adds a new scoring mechanism in, where if you visit these crystals, they can start kind of compounding on each other and giving you more and more score the more of them you visit. However, if you visit them again, you will not get that payout. So it's nice that they do have a different degree of maps to this, and it certainly does feel like you could add more maps to it and quite easily start injecting new mechanisms and things, because the core experience is so simple. Just adding a tweak here or there isn't really going to change the fundamental experience. This is essentially a multiplayer solitaire game. There's very little interaction. The only kind of degree of interaction here are these public objective cards, which I do think is a definite welcome touch here. There's added tension of being the first to achieve these objectives, and even the way that these objectives synergize with each other is cool as well, because some of them might actually tie in with the other one, and that's cool. You know, if you want to get the leg up on your opponent and create a bit of a distance between you, then you can potentially get a 10-point or even a 5-point swing if you are the first to achieve that. And there are also I think there's like 5 or 6 different cards per map, meaning that each time you play a map, you might have a different array of objectives out there. So let's talk about the production for this game. Starting with the visuals, I think the actual artwork of the maps looks fantastic. It has this kind of old school cartography style look to it, and it really works for me. The simple graphic design works as well, just the simple hexes. Not too busy, you can see at a glance what all the different cards are. Even all the exploration of the cards is well worded, so there's little room for confusion there, and you can even just look at the illustrations and kind of understand what everything does. So visually, no problems or no issues whatsoever. However, when it comes to the physical components, I do have some issues with it, particularly because the board does become very busy as the game goes on. These cubes are, they're just standard Euro-sized cubes. But because the map itself is quite small, it does become quite cluttered, quite fiddly, and just quite busy on the way the board looks. Sometimes if you start establishing these villages, you have to start digging in and moving things around and sliding villages in there. You can start knocking cubes all over the place. Particularly as the game goes on, you're going to start placing these little trade houses down. You're going to start putting the towers down. And more importantly, you're going to start putting these little treasure chests down. And it all just becomes a bit much, especially if you have large hands or large fingers like I do. It does become a bit of an issue. So it just becomes a bit too convoluted on the board. And especially at the end of the round as well, when you have to start removing all the cubes, you have to start sliding them all out of the place and stuff. Again, you're knocking things over, and it's just a bit too much for me, to the point where it is a distraction. And also the feel of the game doesn't feel right for the production, because this is essentially it's a flip and write game. It could have been done, at least I see no reason why it couldn't have been a dry erase board. Just put dots on the different spots, take them off as you go. Maybe if you've already got a permanent spot removed, you just fill it in solid black. So I can't see why it wasn't a flip and write game. You could have halved the production costs, because this isn't a cheap game considering the style of game it is. You're looking at most roll and writes being £10 to £20. This one you're looking at £35 to £40. So it just feels like a bit of a missed opportunity there. Maybe they were going for a bigger experience here, or making it feel bigger than it is. But I think it's misproduced, not badly produced, they just didn't quite get the recipe right. Okay, so let's get into some final thoughts for the Guild of Merchant Explorers. And I have to say, this game is a lot of fun. Everything you're doing here feels fun, it feels satisfying, it feels inviting. And I think a big part of that is due to the pacing of the game. You start off not being able to do much at all, maybe just getting a point here or there and establishing a village. But the next time you get to start spawning a bit further along and reaching further and further, getting closer and closer to these real juicy parts of the map. And I also think it's a great touch that earlier in the game, establishing the villages isn't going to get you many points. However, it's going to be important because it's going to be a new spawning point for you. But later in the game, even though you might have a big network already established, it's still worth establishing those villages, because you still get a big chunk of points for doing so. So not only is that great, but the way that ties in with this special card system, I think it's a winning formula. Because these feel fantastic when you get to use them. It feels really fun when you get to draw to and choose the one you want, because they're both fantastic. Which one is going to be benefiting you now, which one is going to benefit you long term, because you might get to use it again and again, depending on how early that card comes out. And yeah, so that's a real strong point of the game. Definitely, I think the thing that most people are going to take away from this. Now, that being said, this game is essentially a flip and write style game, however, in a different format. And I'm not quite sure if all this extra components, all this fiddiness is going to be worth the experience that the game offers. Now, I don't want that to sound like it's detracting from the gameplay, because the gameplay is fantastic. In fact, it's very strong. But the main kind of lure and the attraction for me to play these flip and write style games is that they are so convenient. You just need a pen, a bit of paper, and maybe a deck of cards, and you're good to go. You're talking 30-second setup. This one, there's just a bit too much going on. It's a bit too busy, and it does actively detract me or deter me from getting this one back to the table, which is frustrating because I do enjoy the gameplay that this one offers. But if that doesn't bother you, then hey, go for it. You're not going to have too much of an issue with it, and there is fun to be had here. It's got a good solo mode as well, if that's your style of thing. I didn't really touch on that, but you can probably imagine how that plays. But I think myself, I'm probably going to lean towards the more convenient roll and write or flip and write style games. I'm talking games such as Get On Board, or even like the Trails of Tucana, which has a very similar thing going on, but again, it's just a pen and a bit of paper, so that much more convenient and easy to get back to the table. And also the fact that it does come in a full-size box. It might sound silly, but shelf space is a premium for me. I do not feel this game warrants a full-size box. So all those little things, I just knocked it down, a point or so. And it's going to stop this one staying around in my collection. But I want to reiterate, the gameplay itself is solid, and I definitely think there's a market for it. I just loved it if it was in a smaller, more kind of streamlined and simpler package, rather than throwing all the bells and whistles into the game when it didn't really need to be there.